All right, welcome to our Moon Knight guide here at Mystic Reads. My last upload, I'm proud of it. However, I noticed that I was pretty stiff and wasn't really talking like I was talking to a friend. So I'm going to try to loosen up a little bit more, and I'm going to be playing directly from my phone now instead of playing on my test account or trying to play around with the keyboard. I'm going to play like I normally do. I also noticed that I was talking a lot about what was in the game and not showing it. I think mainly the intention was to avoid spoilers. Okay, you're here. You might get spoiled. So, my intention today was purely to talk about Moon Knight and do a guide for Moon Knight. However, I have noticed there's this new game mode. It came up under the events called Infinite Mayhem Dreamvolution. So I haven't progressed through it, and I figured maybe we could learn about it together, and then we'll jump over and talk about Moon Knight. So it looks like we have points rules. Earn 3 points for each enemy defeated. Earn a point for every second remaining upon victory. Okay, quicker wins are more points. Earn 15 points for every secret keeper defeated. There's a help box up here. During the event, you can earn points for battles, accumulate points to earn rewards. Both heroes and enemies may be affected by some special effects during battle. Choose the right heroes for the fight. You can only use collected heroes for a battle, so can't call in any supports. Unfortunately, I have used that a lot when it comes to all of the energy spending, the ones you got to use orb power for. Your highest score in a single battle will be recorded and shown on the leaderboard. Okay. So let's see, over here it shows our rank. Oh, whenever you see one of these, click them because you're getting free gems. Buffs. All heroes' levels are synchronized to 30. Okay, that makes me worried because I would prefer to be 30 and have played with them at 30. Enemy characters grow larger, increasing HP and attack. When using the same character's skill 2 times consecutively, the second skill costs 1 less. I'm thinking about heroes where I do use the same skill over and over. Misty Knight, I use the debuff skill a lot. Especially because I believe I have her Soul Saga or Talented to where, like, if you do chain them together, they keep getting cheaper and cheaper. So interesting. Okay, well, let's see what happens when I click fight. I don't have the audio streaming. I'm not too stressed about that. Doppelganger is someone where I play consecutive attacks. I don't know that I would say I do with Lady Bullseye. You know, we did talk about having a guide for Moon Knight. So Moon Knight is going to be like a frontline battler. And because he's a fighter, remember the fist, he's got to get up close. The target icon on Misty Knight means she goes far away and shoots at a target, right? So, yeah, I kind of want to roll with this. So let's talk a little bit about Moon Knight since this is supposed to also be our Moon Knight guide. So if you're ever wondering about a hero, one of my favorite things to do, especially if it's been a bit since I played with a specific hero or my first time playing with them, the best way to learn is in battle. But you can long press and hold on them while they're sitting here or on their card down here. So I could even do that to say echo. And you're going to get everything you need to know about the hero right there. You can click on details to see what artifact they have equipped. So currently I have this artifact. Oh, it doesn't tell me anything if I click on it. I was hoping it would. But over here on the left under talent, you can read about their abilities and kind of get a refresher before you go into battle. So First up, this little icon that you'll get, each hero has a specific passive. So Moon Knight's passive is that at the start, he gains this effect called New Moon, and that will switch to Full Moon after 30 seconds. I think when it started was 34 seconds, and the more that you level him up and put materials into this talent, that timer goes down. The numbers that are highlighted in green, those are affected by talents. So the more talents that you put into a hero, the more those numbers go up or down depending on what's more beneficial. So when Moon Knight switches from new moon to full moon, so at this point 30 seconds, it's going to reduce the mana cost of all of his skills by 1. So you see the mana cost for his buff is 2, his dash is 2, so those become 1. And switches to New Moon as soon as you use a skill. So you get to use that effect once, and then it'll switch, right? So just keep an eye out. Like this has a 2-minute timer, so that means that we are going to get 1, 2, 3, the time will run out, but we'll get 3 potential uses of this effect. It's not that big of a deal, but when you see those numbers go down from 2 to 1, they'll also be highlighted green to tell you like, hey, this is not normal, we're having a benefit here. Go ahead and use it, right? You can use it when it makes sense. That's something that we'll get into as we talk about gameplay. You don't have to use mana just because you have it available, right? Save it for when that moment makes sense. And there's no better example of this strategy than Moon Knight, because he's got these 2 different abilities that let him buff his teammates, and then his second ability allows him to move pretty much anywhere. He has a wide range that he can move. So this buff costs 2 energy, and it will increase Moon Knight and nearby allies, and the range is pretty good. I don't understand ranges yet. I wish they would say like 3 squares or something like that. Range self, I don't know what that means. Maybe we can get like an explanation of that in the game would be great. But it says that it increases both him and his nearby allies' attack speed by 63%. And again, that's a number that we can increase over time for 10 seconds. So that's pretty long. And you'll see like the buff icon on all of them. As you get more, as the combat gets more and more complex in the game, you'll start to learn what those little red and green icons mean under enemies and players' health bars, but do keep an eye on them because then you'll know when your entire team has Moon Knight's Blessing or Khonshu's Blessing applied versus when it needs to be reapplied, right? And so kind of your goal, your like secondary goal while you're going through this is, as a Moon Knight character, you kind of want to make sure that your team almost always has that buff going, right? And so the question is, well, how am I supposed to do that when Misty is back here? And that is where his second ability comes into play, his dash. So he will move to a target location, and it's, again, you can see here the range is 3. So his buff is much tighter. The dash, he can move very far away from where he currently is. So he could jump back to your heroes on the back line and then apply the buff, which means you don't want to move, you don't want to use this dash just because you have 2 energy. You want to wait until you have 4 energy, because then you can jump to the best location that allows you to buff the most amount of your allies, and then you run his buff, right? So if you feel like you got to remember, once you do the dash, he's going to start trying to run back to his primary target, whatever that is. So you do have to kind of be quick about it. So maybe don't run it on 2x mode, right? And we'll slow this down while we're going through it to explain it. But the idea is that you're going to dash and then quickly tap buff. see, it'll show you who it's going to apply to, and then you can apply it. And also, that strategy works well with his ultimate. His ultimate is a AoE heal. It's also an AoE damage. So again, don't just fire it off because you have it. Instead, think first, should I strategically move? Should I wait for dash to come up, wait for the energy to use dash, and move somewhere where I'm going to heal my ally that needs the healing, right? Not just heal myself because I can, and also move into a large pack of enemies where I can hit the most amount of enemies and heal the allies that need to be healed all at the same time. Positioning matters a lot in this game, and Moon Knight has the ability to control that in a way that a lot of other heroes do not have. Misty Knight is just going to be standing there the whole game, hopefully not in AoE effects, right? But Moon Knight can control where he is. And we didn't talk about the other great part of his dash ability, is that it will deal damage to the enemy with the lowest health currently. So again, he has this wide area of effect where he can move, and that also means he has a wide area of effect to pick out a low health enemy. One of my favorite methods of using this, the low health, is when you're in those missions where you have to like beat another hero to like defeat a certain number of enemies before they do, and it's like a race against them, is when I see an enemy getting low that hero is targeting, quick, use Moon Knight's dash ability, because he will target that low health enemy and take it out and rob that kill from them. It's super fun and very effective. I've won missions like that where I was below the recommended level, simply because of that mechanic. And especially if you pair him up with Lady Bullseye or Psylocke, who have those follow-up attacks, where he'll do that, and let's say that he didn't quite finish them off, the two of them, hopefully, one of them will trigger, potentially both, and take care of it for you. So enough talking. I have him paired up with Doppelganger right now, so they're both frontline attackers. What I could do is take Doppelganger out and put in Lady Bullseye so that she could be in the back with Misty Knight. And remember, you can control their positioning. It'll show you with these arrows who they're going to be targeting. So when I move her, you'll see that it shows both of them will be targeting her, and then individually they're kind of not grouped up. Now they're both targeting him. These are both targeting them. So they're going to work on that together. He's going to work on this together. And we'll just start from there, and we'll see how this goes. So right off the bat, we have his dash ability. We have Lady Bullseye's attack. And we never want to play that attack at 5, potentially not even at 4 energy. We want that to go down. This is not a Lady Bullseye guide. This is a Moon Knight guide. But we're just going to let them sit. I don't want to use his dash yet, so we're just going to let auto attack. We'll go ahead, and we need to make some space here. So we'll go ahead and apply her buff. It can't hurt. Her attack's already down to 4. We'll use Misty Knight's debuff. Here, we're probably, you see now that debuff has been applied. We can't see it. I don't think I can pause this. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, we can see it. Oh, okay, so you see that little red M there on that octopus on the right. We could go into details and use proper terminology. So when you're in a match, if you go up to that menu and click details, you can look at each of your heroes and see what the status effects are, right? So we know from Lady Bullseye, we went invisible, so now she has a 100% chance for the next 0.8 seconds to do a follow-up attack, so we need to hurry up and use Misty Knight's debuff. We did use it. Okay, we might have to use a dash. You can see that Moon Knight is still under the effects of new moon for another 20 seconds, and then it'll switch to full moon. Right? So you can pause and take a look at the status of things. You can also come down in the corner and switch to the enemy view. This is nice because you can actually learn a little bit about the enemies, what their strengths and weaknesses are. So let's see. Oh yeah, we could have played blue heroes against these guys. Whoops. Deals damage, no current status effects. Here we go. Bale Mark. So when Misty Knight does the debuff, it's showing us that we can gain 1 mana in the next 5.7 seconds if we defeat this enemy in that time. So let's see if we can do that. We're going to use dash here to get over. So you see when I use dash, I can press and hold with my finger and see all the different places that Moon Knight can move. And no matter where he moves, he's always going to attack that one on the right because it attacks the lowest health target. But I want to get close to the two of them, so I can then immediately click buff. And you notice when I click buff, it's showing me where it's going to apply. So there's that ring. So he really doesn't need to be standing next to them, right? He could have been standing almost where he was, probably, and still buff them. So it's good to know what our range is. And we could have always clicked buff first to see, do we need to move before using dash? But we'll go ahead and buff him and our team. Sorry, we need to click down here. So now everyone is buffed. Her ultimate is free. We're going to try to use Misty Knight's Bale Mark to get that free energy back. We didn't do it in time, but that's okay. I'm going to focus in here. There's no real reason to use dash right now, so I'm going to go ahead and buff Lady Bullseye. We've lost our Moon Knight buff, so we'll reapply. It's not showing, so potentially we don't. So let's talk about his heal. As you can see, we're getting that same area of effect, but now it's highlighting the enemies that it's going to hit as well. So Moon Knight definitely does need some healing. It wouldn't hurt. There are more enemies over here. Let's see what we need to do. Oh, we're using it. I did not mean to click to confirm, but that's okay. We're also learning where we can do certain things. So I'm going to come up here and pause. Go to details. Nah, we're not going to be able to see it from here. I kind of want to see. This just shows us that points rules. Okay, so it's just see how many you can do in a certain amount of time. All right, well, let's go ahead and do as much as we can. I should have paid attention and used enemies that were more aligned. We just kind of ran into this mode to see what we could do or see what it was all about. But what we're going to do after this is go into a place where we could talk more about Moon Knight's abilities. For right now, I'm just going to spam as much damage as I can. I don't have the ability for him to move right now, so I kind of got to clear these out. There we go. So we'll dash over here, and let's see if that's close enough. Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do here is I can buff them. They're right on the edge, right? So I have to commit the buff now. Because Moon Knight is a fighter, he's going to try to run back to that enemy. So if I hesitate long enough and he moves into that other square, they will be out of range. So let's take a look. Luckily, the enemy actually is coming to him, so he's not moving. And our buff went down to 0 because he switched over to full moon. We had the reduction of energy, I believe, from Misty Knight. Oh, actually, I forgot about our buffs up here. When using the same character skill 2 times consecutively, the second skill costs 1 less mana and damage increases by 100%. I forgot about that. Okay, so we need some healing on him. I'm going to use his dash to move him away from enemies. So that's another use. It is a little bit of self-preservation there. Um, Hopefully he stays back long enough and doesn't run. Again, he runs back in. We have the ability to use his heal, but we did not click it fast enough. That's a bummer. That would have kept him alive. So again, it all is all about timing. I know it seems like you always want to run into X mode, but sometimes you do really need to plan out and think about what you're going to use when. It could be easy to go into auto mode, and auto mode is just going to use whatever ability has enough energy the second you have enough energy. So it could just keep using Lady Deathstrike's buff, buff, buff over and over again. So that's never going to win you a high end game. 2x mode makes sense, like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and slide, slide, slide. But there is more strategy involved. And I'm sure that you're all seeing that as you level up, that this is more than just an auto battler. So we're going to try to do as much as we can in the next 41 seconds and see if we survive. All right, I've got her. I try to only play her attack when it is down to 2. It does do a lot of damage, so sometimes you just use it to finish off an enemy, and you've got more than enough mana to do that. Always like to use Misty Knight's debuff when an enemy is about to die because you lose nothing and you gain everything. Very early on, I learned to take your time, just kind of looking at the effects something's going to have. We know this enemy heals, so it's better to use our attack there. But the game is really not rushing you to do your attacks. You can take your time. The timers all pause while you're in this non-committal screen. You can always slide back to cancel as well. So don't feel like you are rushed to make a decision. You're not. Well, we are gonna die. I'm invisible, so you can't kill me. Okay. So let's see what we earned for this new mode. So we earned 24 points from that round. And this is going on for the next 2 days and 22 hours. So that already was enough to get me this. Okay. So I guess you can keep grinding to get on the leaderboard, but really we're just trying to get, it looks like those are the only rewards. So we could play this about 4 times and probably be done with it. And also play it with the right damage types. Okay, so let's go into Moon Knight here. And one of the things I will say is that Moon Knight has been one of my favorite characters in this game. At first, when I first unlocked him, I didn't understand his kit fully, and I thought the whole full moon, new moon cycle was a little lame since it was 34 seconds. If we go here under talent, we'll see here, so Lunar Phases is the name of the passive. So once I reach level 31, I can reduce this to 28 seconds, and that will be level 4 of 7. I have not gone and looked up any guides. I am fully enjoying experiencing this by unlocking things myself, and then spitting my ideas back into these guides. And I assume that I will be corrected when I am wrong. So I could start to farm those upgrade materials. I have a few here. Should always, if you're picking a couple favorite characters, you can star them up in the top right corner. So for me right now, my top 3 that I'm always wanting to max out are Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, Lady Bullseye, and Moon Knight. And then I have my secondary fighters underneath that, or heroes underneath that. When I really need a good healer, I was lucky enough to pull Doctor Strange, so that's my top controller. when I need extra frontline attack, like if we just need a bunch of single target damage, doppelganger. Misty Knight for both AoE damage missions and some single target damage. She does quite a lot of damage as well. If I need a solid tank, armor is my best choice right now. I just unlocked Man-Thing, so I haven't fully explored his kit yet, but I am excited to do that. And right now, I'm just focusing on these three. So right off the bat, on the right side of the screen, it shows us our currently equipped artifacts and our highlight. In the bottom left-hand corner here, there is this little guidebook icon. And if you click on that, it'll actually give you recommendations of what you can do with this hero. And it's a little hidden button, so it's worth clicking this on every hero because it will tell you if you're ever lost and wondering, okay, artifacts seem like this whole separate thing that I need to sit down and understand. But right off the bat, you can come in here and learn what is the recommendation. Like, oh, I own the recommended artifact. Perfect. Let me equip that, right? And when I unlock his second slot, I know that I can already equip the other artifact. Unfortunately, I don't have either the recommended highlight or the alternative highlights, but it's nice to know when I get those, I'll immediately know, hey, that's the best Moon Knight highlight, right? And then we have recommended team down here. Looks like I've got at least one of the alternates, and I could click that create team button right here to create that and save that recommended lineup. And what I'll say here is that we're working needs Thor. Oh, I forgot. We'll just say we're not allowed to do spaces in our team names. So I'm going to come up with my own naming convention. Like, oh, parentheses aren't allowed either. So we'll just say needs Thor. And then we'll come up with a good name once we finally have Thor. Or Black Knight. So we will get Black Knight in the storyline. And I'm putting this Moon Knight guide out because, sure, you could be lucky and pull Moon Knight, or you could complete Chapter 2 of the story. So everyone should be able to get Moon Knight by level 20. You will have to complete Chapter 2 of the story in order to have enough experience to get 20 to begin with. I'm sure there are other ways around that, but this is the way that most people will get Moon Knight. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and upgrade these talents while I'm in here. But if you're hardcore focusing on one character, then you start with talents. So here I'm maxed out on this talent. I'm maxed out on this talent. I'm maxed out on this talent. And you can see these talents fundamentally enhance, not just increase numbers, like here we're increasing the damage, but also adding a little bit of extra stats, extra passive abilities. So here, God of Vengeance, which is our ultimate, now it will also dispel a buff from the enemy. So previously, this did almost 400% of his attack as physical damage to all the enemies around him, while also healing allies for half of his health and dispelling a debuff. So it's healing our allies and getting rid of any debuff they might have, one debuff each. Now, because of this talent, it's also going to dispel a buff from the enemies that it attacks. Over here, so when we hit level 61, we'll be able to say enter full moon status instead of new moon at the start of battle. So you see how that immediately takes this meh passive and says, rather than waiting 28 seconds, you already start with it. You already start with your buff being one cost and your dash being one cost. That's great. That's absolutely amazing. So getting to 61 is going to be a big deal. It's going to take 5 of these purple stones, so we got to keep that in mind. If you run across them, save them for later. And then up here, when we reach level 41, HP and attack of all allied fighter and defender heroes are increased by 5%. So he's now creating this aura where he's buffing other fighters and defenders that play with him. So we can't, it would be nice if we could kind of progress through to see what we have. For his buff here, again, this is just going to keep getting stronger. I don't have enough, right? And I said, this is one of the heroes I want to max out. I have enough coins. I don't have enough of these runes. So I could use, if you get any of these boxes, you're able to convert them into the rune of your choice. So I could use that. I could craft. If I had, with crafting, you can either go up. So if you have too many of the green rarity of that rune, you can craft up combine those into the blue version and above. Or you can scrap and go backwards. So if I had too many extra blues, and let's say, I'm level 60 and, I finally unlocked Moon Knight, but I don't have any of those green runes because all my other heroes are too high level. But what I do have is an abundance of blue runes. I can scrap those down. I don't have either, so my only real source for this rune is the rune raid. Let's see, we've got 240 energy. I'm going to click plus to see. Every day this goes down to cheap. So even if you're not going to play that day, it's nice to come in and take advantage of the cheaper refills. So 30 gems, I will do. 30, I will do. 60, I will do. 60, I will do. 60, I will do. And I'll stop. I'm not going to go above that. But now I've got a good chunk of orb energy, and even if I don't use it today, it's still going to be there tomorrow, right? So, all right, so it looks like I have already 3-starred the highest difficulty of this rune, and I've got a bunch of energy and a bunch of combat simulators, so I'm just going to go ahead and use that. And I don't know that we need that many, so let's just start with 1. And grab it. And you notice that it shows Moon Knight here on the right. I love that. So it remembers this is the reason why you came here to get these stones was for Moon Knight. And look, we got a blue one. So we're saving for the future. Okay, so let's go back. And go back to our talents. And we will up his buff ability and we will up his dash ability. And we talked about this in a previous video. But when it comes to these hero collector games, this is what we mean by investing just as much as you need. So I had enough combat simulators there, right? I could have just gone buck wild and used all 6 and said, whatever, I'll get 36 and I'll have a bunch. But now I have a bunch of those in storage for the future. But what I really need is also to upgrade my other heroes. Lady Bullseye, and Moon Girl. And instead I just wasted precious resources on something I didn't need currently. Okay. So it's always a balance in this game to make sure that you have the resources that you need at the time that you need them. Okay. So right now, that was all we needed to do on Moon Knight. So we really only needed that 1 combat simulator and 30 orb energy, and that was enough to max him out. Right, when you think about it, sure, we needed runes, but what we really needed was 1 combat simulator and 30 orb energy. And we converted those into runes that allowed us to max him out. So he's maxed out now on talents. And let's, before we move on for talents, I want to kind of quickly turn your attention to some of these terminologies that we're using here. So Moon Knight uses physical damage. We know that that's good against the enemies that are weak to physical damage, the ones that have the yellow health bars. But what we need to understand is where his damage is coming from. So this is his basic attack, which means that's what's hitting while you're not doing anything. While you're not playing abilities, that's the auto attack that's happening that your heroes are doing. This deals 38% of Moon Knight's attack as physical damage. So this doesn't say things like deals 200 damage, deals 300 damage. It says it deals 38% of Moon Knight's attack. So that's when we go back to details and we look at these symbols. So the heart is for HP, the sword is for attack, the shield is for defense, and then the healing plus symbol is for recovery. So we can see that his attack is 337, 82 of which is being applied through other means. Though I don't think we can actually find out what those other means are. Yeah, so the eye icon here is also a way to toggle this attribute screen. But that most likely those are through highlights, artifacts, potentially talents in Soul Saga. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think it's just from our equipped items. And you know what? We will see that when we look at them. But we can see here that his attack is 337. So that means that his basic attack is doing 38% of 337. So let's figure that out. 337 times 0.38. So it's doing 128 damage every time that it swings. Okay. And if we went in and we looked at the math and we saw that this enemy has 1200 health, then we could say, okay, Moon Knight could kill this enemy in 10 swings. Do you need to know the math down to those? Do you need to know all of this math? No, you don't. But it gives you an idea of what's happening when you're making choices. So when we're making choices between like the two energy attack and the 3 energy attack, it's good to know more of, oh, well, that one's going to do more damage, right, than the other one. The 2 energy attack might actually do more damage. The 3 energy attack does less damage to more enemies, right? But what I need right now is I just need to finish off this one enemy because there's 3 seconds before I 3-star, and that's where knowing some of these things is really helpful. Just in the back of your mind to know these things. So let's take a look at the buff. Increases Moon Knight and nearby allies' attack speed. Okay, so there's not really anything stat-wise that's affecting this. Dash. Moves to the target location and deals 312% of Moon Knight's attack as physical damage. So his basic attack was doing 38%. This is doing 312%. So we take that 337 number and let's just multiply it by 3. We don't need the exact math. He's doing between 900 and 1,000 damage, right? Every time that he does his dash. That's a lot, right? And that's also the equivalent of saying that that's like 10 swings, right? So that's like 10 of his basic attacks. Since his basic attack is 38% damage and this is 300%, that's almost 10. We'll say 9 basic attacks just by dashing. Okay, so it's good to know. And also because when you see him damaging an enemy and you see like, oh, that basic attack is taking like a sliver, right? So what's that sliver times 10, right? And the first time that you do dash, you can see, oh yeah, it's taking out this chunk of health, right? And so he's only got a tiny sliver left, so we can just let basic attack finish it off. You'll start to notice these things and register these things, especially as you play more and more with that same hero. I will say, running the other 2 heroes with Moon Knight, keeping those consistent can help too if you really are trying to learn a new hero. Having heroes that you're already familiar with, that you're already comfortable with alongside him can be very helpful, right? So constantly switching those out is not helpful. So that also might mean going back and potentially going into Dreamscape, going into story mode, and maybe rerunning something that you've already ran before. You've already beaten this, but Now, let's do it. Let's go ahead and skip this story. No, I don't want to skip the battle. I want to retry it. But now, it looks like the last time I did this was my lineup, right? So I'm going to go ahead and swap out Doppelganger, and I'm just going to do Misty Knight and Moon Knight because I just played with them. I already know how they kind of work together. I know that if I group them up, I can reposition Moon Knight to buff them. I just want to focus on learning Moon Knight in this, right? So I can just passively think about what they're doing. Okay, so I want to buff them. Let's get here where I can get closer to them, and then we'll apply this buff. And this is one where we're racing Storm to see who can kill 15. So we can use that tactic we talked about before. I see an enemy low on health, and I've got a debuff available. Perfect. I just gained that extra energy super quick. We'll go ahead and clear this out. Okay, remember that Misty Knight's attack is an AoE, so we can reposition it to hit the most amount of targets. You can do damage when you're competing against, when you're in this game mode and you're competing against Storm. You can do damage to the enemy that you're competing with. It's not going to kill them, but it can daze them for a very long time, which gives you a huge advantage. I wouldn't set them as your primary target. What I would do instead is if you've got AoE abilities that can hit them, maybe wait for an opportunity to do that just so you can slowly whittle down their health as a secondary beneficial effect. But for right now, what we're going to do is focus down these, especially since we'll get another confirmed kill to get our number up. Okay, so we will go ahead and debuff here and then use... Yeah, we could finish that one off on our own. We're going to use an attack here to try to take this one out. It wasn't enough. I do not want to use her attack on the same enemy. It's too much. It's too much. But Storm just stole one of our kills. Okay, so we've got to be careful. Sometimes we can just let the basic attacks run them down and finish them off. Okay, so he's getting pretty low. We could dash, but our other heroes don't really need any healing. He does, and he's also going to potentially get 2 kills and hit Storm at the same time. So we'll go ahead and run that, save his life. Look at all that healing that did. Oh, so much. Okay, what we're going to do now is dash over here. We've got our dash and our buff, and I don't know if you saw, but the dash was down to 1 energy. Thanks to that new moon, full moon. I forget which one is giving us the benefit. But thanks to that passive ability. So that allowed us to get over and buff our team for only 3 mana. I'd prefer Misty Knight in a way where I could hit all of these together. It's not going to happen. We might just use it to get a confirmed kill. There we go. We're going to buff Lady Bullseye. I'm trying to get some more Moon Knight items out here. Let's see. Moon Knight is focused. You can look also where your heroes are looking. We're going to steal this from Storm. Remember that your abilities are going to run before the enemy's attacks, right? So again, that's where I talked about before. Let's use this tactic that we mentioned. So we get an enemy close. So that enemy is close, and we know that Storm is targeting it. Now I can use his dash because that's going to steal that kill, right? So using these like low mana attacks when an enemy is low on health, your animation is going to steal any like attacks they have going on. So it's a great way to kind of cheese these game modes. Not sure what happened there. So again, we're going to go on our backline here, attack. This is also going to get him away from some damage for a little bit. And then we follow up with our buff. Let's see if we can just get out of here. The secondary objective, of course, is for all of your heroes to survive. That's almost always one of the 3-star requirements. So keeping a secondary eye on their health pools is super helpful. And remember, you tap on a skill, that is like a quick pause button, right? So you can assess the battlefield and see if you need to change strategies, if you need to focus on healing, repositioning your heroes, etc. Cool. So I think we've definitely shown a little bit of how to jump into a quick battle, test out a hero, align them with other heroes that you're already comfortable with, and you can think about their kit secondarily. You're not you're not actively making decisions with their kits while you're also trying to learn a new hero. Okay, so let's move on. We talked about talents. Let's move down to highlights. So highlights are essentially kind of a piece of gear. I don't know if there's something else that we need to know about them. But for the most part, they are just something that every hero is allowed to have one equipped. And they give them a big stat boost and typically a passive skill. So on this highlight, it just says that the wearer's attack increases by 30% for 15 seconds after they use their ultimate move. So when we use Moon Knight's ultimate to heal himself and do damage, his attack is now going to go up, which means his basic attack uses his attack stat, 38% of it, to do its damage. So now it's going to get a 30% buff, right? But also his dash ability does 300% of his attack, and now that's going to get a 30% buff, right? So for the next 15 seconds, all of his basic attacks and any other dashes that he does are going to be buffed, okay? So it's just something to keep in mind. Now, when you're working with highlight, you need to come in and enhance. You need to ascend your highlights in the same way that you ascend your heroes. So again, I'm missing some requirements here, so I can go to treasure hunt. I've already 3-starred this. I only need 4. We will simulate. Oh, we got 5. That was more than we needed. And we got the secondary benefit of that XP leveled us up. So let's go back here. I got enough to ascend. We will ascend. And now I can level this up to the same level as my hero. And now I have maxed out another portion of Moon Knight's kit. Currently, all of his talents are maxed out, although we just leveled up, so let's go back up here. We leveled our account levels, so we can level him up again. Okay, and let's see if we unlocked any other talents by doing that. Nope, 31, 31, 31. That's maxed. 31, 31, 61, 41. We're seeing down in the bottom right-hand corner. So we're good until we get to 31 for talents. Also, under the highlights, you can, of course, enhance them to max your character level, but also you can awaken highlights. And all this essentially means is that you can go up to level 5 of that highlight separately from its actual levels. Its awakening level 5. And you do that just by combining copies. So as you're doing draws, you're going to get many highlights and many copies of highlights. And rather than getting frustrated by that, you can combine them together. So this increased that number even higher. So you can think of it almost as a multiplier, where going up on these levels, I'm sorry, let me correct myself. Remember, the details of this is that they help. These are those stat increases that we were seeing in Moon Knight's attributes. So those are coming from enhancing or leveling up those effects. The awakening is awakening the passive effect that this highlight has. So that green number. Okay, that makes more sense. So we talked about the details, the attributes, the talents, the highlights. Next we have the artifacts. So you unlock the first artifact, I think it was at level 25, and then you'll unlock the second artifact slot at 35. Artifacts also, as you can see, are affecting attributes, but artifacts themselves also have an ability. So this artifact increases our attack by 10%. We love it, right? Because we know that everything that Moon Knight does is based on his attack stat. So we can enhance this and also level this up, but this is separate from our hero level. It's a little different from highlights, where highlight, you can level that up to match your hero level. This is a different level. You can see this only goes up to level 12, and it's using this shared resource, these essence shards. So that's shared across all your artifacts on all your heroes, right? So it's a little different. It's a little different kind of resource management system that you have to worry about there. So just keep that in mind. So here, this is, it's getting expensive. I don't really want to go above 1400 because I want to spread that out across my 3 main heroes. So Lady Bullseye is another one. So let's see. Oh, she's up in the 2000s, so she's much higher, level 8. There we go. Moon Girl, we'll go ahead and get her to level 5. Okay, and we're going to keep that there. We're just going to keep that there for now. It's a different kind of management system for sure. Then we have our Soul Saga, and Soul Saga is where you go when you get disappointed because you pulled the same hero again. So when you get through the storyline, you're going to get Moon Knight, but if you pull him again in after Chapter 2, if you're pulling him from the key system and you get duplicates, that's okay, because those duplicates turn into shards. And there are ways to earn shards. You will see throughout game modes that shards are used as a reward. Shards are also most likely something that can be purchased. Okay, so it says right now the only way to get shards is through the Dreamweaver system for Moon Knight, but there will be other sources eventually, and probably special game modes, limited time bundles, and things like that that will give you shards. And those shards are used to greatly enhance that hero. You have 2 paths that you can go down, the heart path and the mind path. You have to unlock level 1 of each path before you can unlock level 2 and level 3. You have to go down both paths in order to unlock the final soul unlock. Let's look through these because they fundamentally improve Moon Knight's capabilities. So, Heart 1 says Moon Knight deals 36% more physical damage for 10 seconds after defeating an enemy with Night Traveler, and that's his dash ability. So if he defeats an enemy by doing that dash, then he's going to do 36% more damage for the next 10 seconds. So you can see where if you there are missions where you just have Moon Knight, right? Where you just have one character. So imagine just dashing over and over to take out swarms of enemies. That's really cool. Let's take a look at Heart 2. His attack increased by 15%. That's just a straight up stat boost to our most important stat for Moon Knight, which is our attack stat. Heart 3 says for every 1% HP that the target loses, Night Traveler, again our dash, deals 1% more damage up to a maximum of 30%. So every time that our primary target is losing health, that is going up to the point that we can have these really big dashes, right? They're already doing 300% of our base attack stat. Now we could buff that up even more. So let's go down the Mind Path now. Mind Path is mentioning Khonshu's Blessing, so that's our buff ability. It's going to say that it also increases the defense of allies within range by 30%. So not only is it going to increase their attack speed, it's going to increase their defense. For our backline fighters, you saw in our 2 examples, that wasn't much of an issue, right? They were out of the fray, so they weren't taking much damage. But if we have a team of all frontline fighters and defenders, this is going to be super helpful, right? Because now he will be not just making it so, let's say Doppelganger and Armor are attacking faster, but they also have higher defense. Super great. Let's look at Mind 2. So energy generation is increased by 30%. So we're now generating that energy even faster. And I think almost every hero has one of these. So if you have a team where everyone has this stat, that's crazy. You're just firing off abilities left and right. Mine 3, each time the lunar phase switches, so his passive ability, from full moon to new moon, he will gain 50 ultimate energy. And this is something to keep in mind because when we look at ultimate skills, it's not 100%, right, when it says that. So if we take a look at his ultimate here, it tells you right there that it has an energy cost of 400. Every hero's ultimate cost a different amount. So our Soul Saga says that we're going to generate that energy even faster, okay? But every time that he switches between those moon phases, so after that timer goes down and he switches, there's 50 out of that 400 that you need. So you're probably already progressing, but boom, there's a big jump in his ultimate cooldown and availability. And then as soon as you use that buffed effect, from switching from full moon to new moon, guess what? It switches back. So there's another bump on his ultimate. So you're just running that ultimate, healing yourself and your allies, and doing that AoE attack much more often because of your passive. So this is where, as you build up this character, it's going to get stronger and stronger, and you see the synergies. I'm super excited to see what Soul is. Gains 1 mana each time the lunar phase switches from new moon to full moon. So not only now are we getting ultimate energy, we're getting mana every time that switches. Can you imagine? Imagine. You just got a buff, your abilities went down to 1, but here's some extra mana, right? So let's dash, buff. Oh, and by the way, you did that. Here's some more mana. Right? So you're gaining 2 mana and 100 ultimate charge in a span of a couple of seconds because of his passives. Now, by the time you get this, I don't know what that passive is going to be down. It might be down to like in the low 20-second range. So this is happening more often. I would also imagine the content itself is demanding that you invest this much time into Moon Knight. Speaking of too much time into Moon Knight, we have invested quite a lot of time. I know that we have talked about a lot more than just Moon Knight today. We've also talked about the new surprise game mode that came out of nowhere. Limited time event. Looks like we're going to get in real quick. I'm going to go put in some of these this blue damage. I'll remember the names eventually. But thanks for coming along for our Moon Knight guide today. I'm happy that I was able to use my regular account, which is where I would prefer to be spending my time and energy. And let me know if you like this, if you have any ideas for how to improve this. But I think next we'll do a Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur guide, as everyone should have heard now. As we all got a free 3-star character for just logging in for the first 2 days of the game. I can't wait to see what comes next, and I still have high hopes that we're going to get some Fantastic Four characters here soon. So enjoy your time in Marvel Mystic Mayhem, and have a great day.